You know, one of the great things about Dartmouth is the fantastic natural setting. Here we are on the banks of the Connecticut River. I've got New Hampshire on my left and Vermont on my right on a gorgeous autumn day. And it is the perfect setting to tell you an innovation story about the great outdoors. Now, this story actually takes place on the other side of the country. It is a story about a group of climbers that were making their very first effort to get to the top of Mount Rainier. Now, believe it or not, despite the fact that this mountain is covered with glaciers, 10,000 people make the effort to get to the top each year. And it is probably the world's most difficult climb that is accessible to novices, just so long as they're accompanied by an expert guide. Now, our group of climbers woke up just a few minutes after midnight. They'd only slept for an hour, but they were alert, they were excited, they were ready to go. This was an adventure that they had been thinking about for months. The first hour of the climb was pretty easy, but each subsequent hour got a bit harder. Finally, at about dawn, our climbers got their first glimpse of the summit of Mount Rainier, and it was exactly as they had imagined it. It was majestic, it was inspiring, it was glistening in the morning sun. And so our climbers focused their energies inward and continued on. But with each step, their labors became more difficult. Muscles ached, and the air became thinner, and the climbers became dizzy. And some of them began to contemplate the very real possibility that they might not make it to the top. And in fact, over half the people that attempt this climb every year turn back, their ambitions unfulfilled. Well, I'm happy to tell you that this group of climbers was strong, and they persevered, and they made it to the summit. And they were jubilant, because to be on top of Mount Rainier is to feel like you are on top of the world. I have to tell you, though, that their adventure was not yet over. They still had to get back down. And our expert guide was, in fact, quite aware that it is the descent from Mount Rainier that is actually the more difficult part of the journey. Now, climbing a flight of stairs, that's harder than coming back down. Or climbing to the top of some of our local hills here around Dartmouth, definitely harder than coming back down. But Mount Rainier is different. It is a dangerous mountain, one that claims a few lives each and every year. Snow on the surface of the glacier can collapse into interior caves and tunnels. Giant slabs of ice can suddenly crumble and fall away, and climbers can fall into deep crevasses. Here's the interesting thing. Despite the fact that the experts always warn climbers of these dangers in advance of the big day, they always relax at the summit, because at that point, their big aspiration, their big dream, it's been fulfilled. The trip down, it's just an afterthought. And so it was that our climbers, having invested very little emotional energy in the descent and having very little physical energy remaining, took their first few steps down the other side of the mountain. Well, this is a story that you actually get to finish yourself. If you're an optimist, you probably imagine that the climbers, despite their lack of preparation, make it down okay. And if you're a pessimist, well, I guess you imagine that they fall into a deep crevasse, never to be seen again. Either way, here is the point of the story. There is a Mount Rainier-like summit in every innovation journey. It is the moment when you say, fantastic idea, that is it, eureka, let's make it happen. And getting to that moment can involve years of work, years of scientific research, months of building prototypes, financial analysis, strategic analysis, market research, endless creative brainstorming sessions. And when you finally get it, when you finally have that perfect idea, it feels great. But of course, an idea is not enough. After the idea comes the other side of innovation. That's execution, getting from big idea to big impact. Unfortunately, most people overlook the other side of innovation. They think it's behind-the-scenes dirty work. And that's a shame, because as it is with Mount Rainier, it is the other side of innovation where you'll find all the hidden dangers and all the unexpected stumbling blocks.